Perfect. So as we just said, this mug is being recorded. If you do not wish to be on the recording today, feel free to drop off. We will be posting the recording later this week. And then we will stop the recording at the end for questions. So if you have things that you don't want to be on the recording, you can feel free to wait until the end when we stop that. And if you have any questions about that, there's an advocacy@adobe.com email address here that you can reach out to. Next, if you are, like I said, new to the North America mug, I think we have a lot of new faces here this month. Be sure to sign up in Bevy so that you get all of the updates on what we have coming up. There's a link here that we can drop in the chat, but be sure to check that out. You'll get updates on all of our events. Make sure you're registered. Get to hear about the recordings and everything after the fact too. So we have a lot of good stuff planned for the upcoming year. In March, we're going to have a speaker talking about Marketo and how to use ChatGPT. So be sure to watch for that and check that out too. And then there's a lot of great opportunities coming up within the broader Adobe community for mug members. You may have heard Adobe Summit is coming up at the end of March. It's happening March 26th through the 28th back in Las Vegas. There is a $200 off in-person pass if you sign up before February 13th. So just about another week left to do that. So be sure to check that out if that's interesting to you. And then there will also be online components again. So if you can't make it to Vegas in person, there should be some great sessions in person. And the mug community continues to grow and grow. There's a lot of good sessions still happening this month. That's the benefit of being earlier in the month is, yeah, you get to see everything that's coming up. So a lot of mugs are still doing virtual sessions, as you can see here. So be sure to check out some of the other sessions. Champ office hours are coming up later this week. The New York mugs are having a virtual meeting tomorrow. So all kinds of great things to check out if you're not local to these meetings. And also a variety of international mugs as well. So a lot of these are in person, but there are some virtual things too that you can log into and check out if the topics are interesting. All right, so now we'll get to our speakers. So like I teased at the beginning, we've got 4 great speakers with us today covering a variety of topics, all things Marketo and MOPS related to help you save time and be more efficient as you go into this year. So we've got Pott, who's going to be talking about templates outside of your map and how you can use those to save time. Lucas Machado is going to be talking about folder structures, organization, tokens, and all of the good things with that. Courtney Edward Jones is going to be diving into naming conventions and how to, build those with program IDs, form IDs, make them more scalable and efficient. And then one of my favorite topics, Sydney Mulligan is going to be talking about monitoring reports and how you can set things up to let you know when you're having issues in your system. So got the whole gamut of topics today. So we can go ahead and dive right on in. First, we'll turn it over to Chloe to kick us off with templates outside of your map.
Hello, everyone. I'm super excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Jackie and Natalie. Just want to let everyone know there's no relation between me and Jackie. We may have a similar last name, but I'm excited here today to talk to you about templates outside of your marketing automation platform. I'm a template nerd. It helps my job. It just makes my job so much easier. But who am I to talk to you about this? A little bit about me. On the personal side, I'm one of the many American expats on this call. I call France my home now. Oh, my little France flag emoji didn't show up. I have 2 kids who keep me young, 4 and almost 2. I, like many folks in marketing ops, did not study marketing operations. I kind of fell into it. I studied psychology and French. But I've been in marketing ops for almost 15 years now, which I'm starting to date myself. But one thing that I'm really passionate about is just helping not only marketers, but anyone within an organization be more efficient using processes and technology. So I'm going to share with you today 5 different ideas of templates that you can use that are not tied to your marketing automation platform. Go ahead, next slide, Natalie. The first one, there we go, are request forms. These are some simple screenshots that I grabbed off of the internet. You can make request forms for anything from a simple email send to a full-on implementation project or any sort of project. And you can use these for if you're as small of a MOPS team as one person to a larger marketing ops team. And some of the tips that I have why I've used request forms is it helps you centralize everything rather than getting people slacking you, sending you a DM or sending you an email. You centralize all your requests in one form in a project management tool so you can easily track what's being asked of you. Speaking of tracking things, if you're lucky enough to work in a team of more than one person, more than one MOPS person, then you can assign tasks out as they come in. And based on what you ask in your request form, whether that's project type or region that it's supposed to support or a campaign type, you can create nifty automations to assign these tasks out so you don't have to become a bottleneck for anyone. And if you have a team of campaign specialists or whatnot, they can take all the requests that come in that have to do with building a campaign in your marketing automation platform. Having request forms also allows you to accelerate your SLAs and also just be extremely transparent and stay accountable for what you're doing. If someone submits a request and they don't have all the data in there, build it in a way that they can't submit the request without filling in all the fields. That way, you don't have all of this back and forth trying to ask them, okay, can you give me more information? When is the deadline on this? It just creates accountability on everyone's side. And it also shows to your management on what you're working on and shows what bandwidth you have so that if management comes to you saying, hey, we have a pants on fire situation, we need your help, you can say, okay, here's what I'm working on. What can be put in the backlog? And then my last idea or recommendation for request forms is all the fun, cool automation you can do with it. I know tools like Asana and I think even Notion have like special animations. When you complete a task, you get like a sparkly unicorn, and that's always fun and makes it feel very special when you complete a task. Tip number 2, next slide, please, is data and list imports. This is one of my favorites because I'm a huge Excel, like Google Sheets expert, geek, if you shall I say. I love color coding things. And so this is actually a list import template that I've used across many organizations that I've been at. It saves you so much time up front by asking for data in the correct format that matches your systems. So this might not work for your particular organization, but for where I work, we standardize country. We also standardize state and province, job role, number of employees. If we are at a trade show and we get business cards and your marketer is filling in the Excel file and they put USA or US or United States, it's going to cause so many different sync errors in your system when you upload them that it just makes it's easier if you just have a pick list in there. And I think, Natalie, if you click once more, yeah. So here are some examples of the pick lists that I use to help standardize things and make it easier. And it just reduces chances of error when importing data. I ask marketers for specifically their campaign member status so that we know exactly which success metric is going to be tracked with the data import. Again, I said country, state, employee, number of employees, job role, even like UTM parameters, you can standardize so that it helps ultimately make reporting cleaner in the long run. Tip number 3 is called campaign categorization. I'm not going to go too much into this because I don't want to ruin Courtney's slides, but you can use this to your advantage in so many different ways. For reporting in your CRM, whether it's Dynamics or Salesforce or any of the other, even in HubSpot if you want to. If you categorize your campaigns with different fields, you can create reports that show, for example, what are all the webinars that the marketing team has done in the past quarter? You can create a marketing calendar because one of your fields and your categorization frameworks can be date or quarter. If you sell multiple products in your organization, you can have a pick list for product. So when you're SDR, BDR, any DR team comes to you saying, hey, what content do you have on top of funnel prospects in like aerospace industry? If you've tagged all your campaigns properly, you can just click a few buttons and show them exactly what marketing content and campaigns that you have either in the past or coming up that are relevant for them. It makes things easier, not just for marketing, for leadership to see what you're doing, but it also makes it easier for sales, for them to understand what marketing is doing and that we're not just making t-shirts all the time. Tip, the following tip, I think this is 4, I lost count. Decision frameworks. Decision frameworks is one that I don't see happen a lot, and I really love this one. It's streamlines the entire process for a decision maker because they don't need to ask more clarifying questions, kind of like a request form. But this is specifically used for major decisions. For example, attending or sponsoring a trade show, acquiring a piece of technology in your stack, or renewing a piece of technology in your stack. If you document and you write down, you do the RACI framework of who's responsible, who's accountable, who's informed, and especially the due date. This supports, having a decision framework really supports async work so much. And just having that documentation for historical purposes, if there's churn in your team and you want to know why you didn't sponsor last year's event on whatever topic, here you have it written down of what was our problem statement, what was it, why did we want to sponsor it, what were the solutions. And Natalie, if you click one more time, you can tie all your decisions to the resources in your organization. Who is it going to take? Whose time and bandwidth do you need to do a certain thing? What's the potential ROI of this? And a lot of times, marketing ops or marketing folks get asked to do things that aren't necessarily aligned with the company strategy. And here's where you have your chance to justify it. Put something in there that dictates how is this decision actually supporting your company strategy and your OKR. And if it's not, then that helps understand for everyone why maybe this isn't the best decision to make, or why it should be, I can't think of the word in English, like straight to the decision and fast tracked. We should fast track it to make a decision. Next slide, please, Natalie. So overall, as you can see, I'm very excited about templates, especially ones outside of your marketing automation tool. It keeps things clean. It keeps things easy to find. I think, dare I even say, it keeps things fun, because you can have a template for anything and you can just send links to people and say, hey, here's what you need, fill it out. And it allows people, it allows you to enable other people with being self-sufficient. So you can make them feel more empowered that they can do things on their own without marketing ops always remaining or always being a bottleneck or policing or gatekeeping things. You can say, hey, I love that idea. It's great. Here's what we would need to get it done. And you provide them with the necessary template to do that. So I would love to answer any questions, but I think we'll wait until the end. Thank you.
You have some requests, Chloe. People want to know
do?
the French word for fast track.
Oh, now I'm under pressure. Let me think of it and I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome. Well, that was great. Now you have a lot of good ideas going in the chat here. So thanks so much, Chloe. And next, we're going to turn it over to our next topic. Lucas, take it away with your folder structure tips.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for having me here. First, introducing me a little bit. I'm from Brazil, from São Paulo, and I'm speaking to you guys directly from summer because while you guys are in winter, we have summer here. So it's around 90 to 100 Fahrenheit degrees. I'm sorry for that. And as Chloe said, I think nobody graduated in MOPS. I didn't either. I graduated in applied and computational mathematics. and somehow I arrived in MOPS. I'm a very techy-savvy person, skilled in Python, JavaScript, and APIs, and I love solving challenges. And I'm also MCM, CSA, but I'm also a very, very chaotic person. So that's why I use a Zoom background, and that's why I'm going to talk with you guys about organization, because I really need that in my previous works experience. Yeah, now I'm working with Revenue Pulse and a marketing automation specialist. But previously, when I started working in MOPS, I inherited an instance, being an instant admin, Marketo Instance admin, with only 4 months experience. So you can imagine the chaos back there. I created a folder for every campaign that I had to run. And after a few months, nobody else could find themselves besides me. So I had to go back and understand why organization was important and why I should be systematic with my work. And that's all I've learned back then. So I'm happy to share it with you guys. So yeah, thanks, Natalie. So first thing, we need a few ground rules. Oh, my numbers didn't work, but all right. Because these are the principles that will keep us aligned with our work. So the first thing, we always want to go from macro to micro. We always want to start with the big splits to get in the small folders. We also always want to start on program types or year before we go to quarter. We also want always to keep on the top things that you use the most and on the bottom things that you use the least. Obvious rule, but it makes a lot of sense. And this one, it took me a while to really get it, but a folder can only contain one type of thing. A folder cannot contain other folders and programs. It cannot contain programs and assets. It cannot contain assets and smart campaigns. You have to create one folder for each specific type of thing, because it will help people navigate there, people that never build a campaign or that do not understand how this instance works yet, because you might be working this instance today. We might be working on this instance today, but in the future, another person might inherit that. And at last, maximize your token efficiency. So you always want to keep on top tokens that you use the most and the bottom tokens that you use the least. You can pass, Natalie. So when you are getting started, you always should add active marketing initiatives folder at the top. There's where you add all your campaigns and all your campaign types. And there's where you add also all your brand and company related tokens and year token, because you always have to change that in the beginning of the year. So if you have, for example, socials in your footer, I think everybody has social in the footer of the emails. That's where you add those tokens. Then you, in the same level, you create folders for templates, operations, learning and testing, and archive. You don't want to mix all of that because it should be split for ease of use. And inside marketing activities, marketing initiatives, you should create folders for each initiative type. So webinars, event, emails, engagement, and inside there, program type related tokens. You can pass, Natalie. But then when you get inside each program type folder, there are different approaches you can use. It's always recommended to have time-defined folders, so for a year or for quarter and month, because it makes easier for people to navigate there, people to find their programs. And you can also have folder levels just by brand, by audience type, or by region, whichever will maximize your token efficiency. So if you are a company that, for example, delivers content for different brands, then maybe going to and you don't have different workspaces for that. Splitting by brand might be good because you can define the tokens inside that folder instead of going to each program. If you talk to different audiences type, maybe it's better to add those folders there, because then you can use the tokens there to split the audience types in the folder instead of in each program. And you always want to keep the same structure for all program type folders. So you don't want to have one that's split by brand and another one So for example, you have a webinars folder, and then you have a brand folder beyond that. But in the emails, you split by audience type. That makes confusing. Of course, you can change a few things like for emails, you want to split by quarter, but for webinars, it's okay to have a yearly folder because you don't do those many webinars. But you don't want to change the hierarchy of your organization. If you define one hierarchy at some place, you should keep that throughout all your programs, throughout all your folders. You can pass, Natalie. Finally, it's all about the right balance. I've met people that are super organized that create a folder structure that's so deep that in the end, for each folder, there is just one program. And we don't want that because in the end, that's not doing us any help. It's just making us work harder to get there. But if you do it like I did in the past and create a folder for each campaign in the top level, you'll never find your programs, and it will take forever to create one because you'll not have inherited tokens, you'll not have this efficiency. And you should also think of your folder structure in the future. And I'm not talking about 10 years because, well, if you're thinking 10 years in the future, you're thinking that your organization is probably going to be global with 10,000 programs quarterly, and that's very hard to adjust for nowadays, but you should think in at least 3 to 4 years because that will help you have some space to grow, and it will also be useful for nowadays. And I think that's it. Thanks a lot, guys. If you have any
Awesome.
questions, I'm
Thanks so
happy to
much.
answer.
Yeah, there's a lot of good feedback in the chat, and then we'll save any questions for the end, and then we can get to everything all at once. So thanks so much, Lucas. We will jump ahead now to, sorry, I got a little delay on my end. There we go. Courtney is going to take it away now, talking about naming conventions. So go for it, Courtney.
Perfect. Thank you. You said there's a delay. Is it showing the red screen or the screen with my face? There we go.
There you go. Cool.
Okay, so in keeping with the trend of let's introduce ourselves, I love this. I am also an expat. I'm originally from the States, but I now live in Manchester in the UK, which is the music capital of the UK and also the first ever industrialized city like in the world, which makes for some pretty cool architecture. And I recommend if anybody's ever in the UK, yes, London is amazing, but come up to Manchester as well. Let's meet for lunch. I also fell into it. I love this. And also in the chat, people talking about one, how they fell into MOPS, and then also two, if they could go back and see their past instances, which is something I'm about to talk about. My shame and embarrassment, but I fell into MOPS as well. I actually studied marketing as an undergrad, but then I went into a nonprofit route. And I was working in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and I think my goal was to work for like Oxfam or the UN or one of these big nonprofits potentially. And I decided to get a master's degree, which brought me to Manchester. And after a year studying that in like peace and conflict studies, I was like, that's intense. I need a break. I'm going to travel Europe. And so I took a field marketing job. I fell back onto my undergrad degree, and that opened up into a MOPS role, and I've never looked back. So I'm so glad that I took that role and just decided like, oh, I need just a little bit of a brain break, which obviously now 10 years in, I'm still doing MOPS and still live in Manchester. I thought I would share some of my goals with you guys, mainly one, so you guys can hold me accountable. So I feel like if I put this out there, anybody on this call, feel free at any point over this next year. If you take anything away, one, get a program ID in your naming convention. We're going to talk about that. Two, feel free to hold me accountable. I'm trying to learn to run. It's a love-hate relationship, but I'm going for the Couch to Eras tour, and I've decided that I want to be able to run Taylor Swift's whole Eras tour by the time she finishes touring, which is ambitious because she's like coming into the second half of it. But I also want to read 25 books, which is just a random number, like 2 a month. That's not going well. We're into a half a book and we're into the second month, but this is okay. And learn Python. So Lucas, I might be coming to you for some resources after this because I would love to. But yeah, that's a bit about me. Next one. I've tried to move it myself. Okay, so I am going to, oh no, that's not fair to say. I was about to say, I'm going to hope everybody has a naming convention. I know not everybody does because like I mentioned, came into a role and I took a field/digital role that opened into marketing ops, and I had never even heard of Marketo. and I got my first instance given to me, and it was blank. So when I built out that instance, I had no idea about naming conventions, no idea about structure and folders and any of that. And if I could go back to that instance, I would love to be able to go back to that instance and just rebuild it now that I know what I know. So real quick, we are going to look at one piece of the naming convention today really quickly, but why have a naming convention? It's going to bring consistency. It's going to help with your organization, going to make things really efficient, which is really what we're going to talk about today. Bring clarity for you, for anybody that's building in your instance, but also anybody that's looking at those campaign names in your CRM. It's scalable. It's going to help with analysis and reporting. Like Chloe mentioned, it can really help you slice your data how you need to when you've got things categorized and you've used consistent conventions and parameters to identify what that campaign is for, and then it'll help with your compliance and governance. Next one. This is just a quick overview. If you don't have a naming convention, lots of people use whatever's important to your business structure. So this is just some of what we use at Zora. This is a slide that we used when we rolled out a brand new naming convention at the beginning of this year. So we won't go over it all, but fiscal year and quarter, like Chloe mentioned, the date's really important and you can pull that in. I've seen people actually go down to the month level, even the date level. Region, if you need a geo focus on it, your requester or the business unit, campaign type. So this is a webinar. And then we have a few more added into ours, but the star of the show I want to talk about is including your Marketo program ID. So I kind of went through steps with my old instance where I built with no naming convention. Then I learned how to build with naming conventions. And then as a third step, I realized this, and this is what was a game changer as far as unlocking efficiencies for me personally, as a marketing operations professional. Next one. So all I implore is do yourself a favor. Yes, there's benefits for everybody else as well, but this is going to be one that's going to just really streamline time for you guys. This is a unique code. So when we talk about the program ID, we're talking about the 4 or 5-digit code that's in the browser URL. Marketo is going to generate this code for you, so you can't have it before you create the program. So what you're going to want to do is create your program, whether you create from a template, which is amazing if you do, but even if not, create that program, then go in and copy it from the URL, go back into your program name and edit to add that in. So it is an extra step, but that little short extra step is such a time savings later on for you. You can include it anywhere. You can include it in the prefix with all of your parameters. I've seen people include it in the suffix, but that's quite hard. We know when we're trying to scroll all the way over to see the full name of our programs, it can get quite long. I would say always include it with whether you use dashes or underscores. I prefer underscores. Include that in the naming convention so that if you're wanting to look for that number, but you also have numbers for whatever reason included in your description, you don't actually pull those in. You can make sure you just put underscore the 4 digits and it's going to pull that program for you. I would update the name of your program before you sync to your CRM, just because if not, that's an extra step of having to break that sync and resync it. And then if you have a campaign name generator doc, which is a template that Chloe was talking about before, which is great with a pick list, and it helps people to name their campaigns with the set parameters you want them to use, then make sure they're going back and updating that doc once you're able to give them that 4-digit code, or once they're able to get it if they're building directly into your Marketo instance. So benefits, we're going to fly through these. Really, it's easy to search. So it's going to make when you're using your navigation or your tree, on the left-hand side, so much easier than looking for a specific name, or especially if you use common names for your campaigns or repetitive and you've got them for multiple years. If you have just that program ID and you search for it, it's going to bring that one up for you. Same if you're building out smart lists or you're building out a flow and you're trying to find an email. In this example, the top one has the word subscribed, which is something we use a lot in our campaign names. And you can see there's stuff all the way back from 2015 in there. I would be scrolling for ages trying to find what I want. I know it's so small, so if you can't see that, I'm sorry, just take it. That on the top, on the right-hand side, the top picture shows tons and tons of campaigns. And then the bottom one is when I've searched just for that program ID number. Same if you've got choices and you want to say somebody's a member of a campaign, it really reduces the chance of having errors because you can know that it has that. equally, the flip side of this, if somebody's QAing your campaigns, it makes it a lot easier for them rather than having to guess that you did grab the right one, whether it be send email or, you know, is a member of a smart list and do this type choice. It will make it so much easier for people to QA that for you, and it just makes your whole process faster. Next one. And then reporting, it's really going to streamline your reporting. One, it's going to help you, a naming convention in general is going to help you to slice your data how you need to. But then if you're building out reports in your CRM or wherever it might be, rather than include like name is and then have to get the exact name of your campaign to pull it in, if you're looking for, in this case, a campaign with campaign members, or name contains, and then all of a sudden you're pulling in all this stuff from 2015, which we just saw if you have an older instance. You can just say name contains and then bring in that 4 digits, and you know you're going to be looking at the exact campaign you want to. These are just a few of the benefits. These aren't exclusive by any means, but this is to show examples of when you're in Marketo, how it helps, and when you're outside of Marketo, how it helps. As well, many platforms require you to know that program ID in the sync with that platform anyway. So in this case, for our event platform, we need to be able to identify that program ID. When we call the webhook, it knows exactly which program we're looking for because we've synced it through that specific program ID. So if you have to know it anyways, you might as well include it in your naming convention. And then the last one is just an addendum to this, which is I would do the same with any of your assets anyways, but especially with your forms as well. So asset IDs, and in this case, your form IDs are going to be separate though from your program ID. So know whether you use global forms, like in this case, or whether you use localized forms, you're not going to say filled in form and form name contains and include your program ID. You're going to look for a separate ID that sits specific to that form. So you just want to make sure to be cognizant of that. But it's going to bring you many of the same benefits we've talked about: efficiencies and less chance of error when you're looking for things. Your any team that builds, whether you have a campaign ops team or whether you're building in there, will start to know these form numbers by heart. They'll know exactly what form they're looking for to pull into different programs. And then if you do need to deprecate a form and get a new one, it's really an easy way to identify if you're pulling in the old one. Because you could have this says English, like the language English content download. Imagine it said English _ content download or English content download 2, and they just didn't notice, but it was because they were all called the same. In this case, we know that anytime we need it, our correct form right now is 1871, and that's the one we want to pull into our programs. And it's also great if you're using any kind of third-party tool. Not all of them are built this way, but some of them are built where through the integration, it'll show you all of your forms, including those that have been archived. So you could scroll and scroll and scroll trying to find the ones you need. But when you know your form ID, then you'll be able to see it right there. And that's my tip.
Awesome. We got a lot of great questions for Courtney. We'll hold those for the end here. But a lot of good conversation going around archiving and folders and IDs and all of that good stuff. So thanks so much, Courtney. And we'll turn it over to our last presenter before we get into our Q&A. So Cindy's going to take it away with monitoring reports.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Oh, do we have my slide with my face on it? No?
Oh no, I haven't.
Oh, weird. Okay, well, I will just tell you what was on there. I also added some more slides to this morning, and I'm now wondering if maybe those are not there either.
I can reshare the other one. Hang on, let me look to see.
Okay.
I downloaded
sorry,
it just a
Natalie.
little bit ago. That's okay.
Oh
Just
no,
hang tight.
I'm so sorry. Okay, well, I will
It's
just
there
talk
on
more.
the link.
Yeah, let me just swap.
Okay.
I had internet issues the last session, so I thought I would
Oh,
download.
sorry. I
So, and
accidentally
did mess up a
bamboozled
couple of things.
you. My
Bear with
bad.
me. You're good. Hang on. Can
Okay,
do
well, I will
this.
just start while Natalie's doing this by saying that what I'm going to talk to you about today is a subset of a larger presentation that I did, and I'm going to put the link to the bigger presentation in the chat. It's not gated or anything, it's just the recording and the slides, so like, feel free to go look at it if you feel like it.
One second.
I can also share, Natalie, if that would be
No, I'm
helpful.
good. I'm just trying to get my windows doing what I need them to do. There we go.
Um,
All right. You seeing it, everybody?
Yeah.
There we go. There's
Here
Sydney.
it is. Okay, sorry. Okay, well, hello, I'm Sydney. I'm the co-founder of Emmy Collective. I was a Marketo champ once upon a time. I'm the leader of the New York Marketo user group. And I also Marketo certified, Marketo solution architect, whatever it's called now. I live in New York City. I have two small kids. Fun fact, Chloe and I were pregnancy buddies both times, so our kids are exactly the same age, which was 4 and 2, if you don't remember that fun fact from her. So I live with my kids and my husband, and sometimes Taylor Swift, not like in my apartment, but sometimes she lives here and I consider us neighbors. I accidentally majored in marketing operations before that was a thing that you could do or know about. I double majored in public relations and computer science and didn't realize this is what I was looking for until I found it. I'm the co-founder of Emmy Collective. We're a marketing ops agency for freelancers. And my goal for this year is to perfect my chocolate chip cookie recipe and memorize it. I'm pretty close. I'm like almost there. And I will also say, I know that I talk too fast and I'm working on it, but there's only so much I can do. Pretend you're watching Gilmore Girls. They talk really fast. And if all else fails, you can watch the recording of this at half speed. We're going to talk about monitoring reports today. Usually when we think about reports, of course, you're like thinking about marketing performance, right? Like, how do I know if my campaign worked? How do I know what's impacting revenue? Where is my marketing attribution going? This is a completely different type of report. This is a report to know how you know something is broken. So if today you are mostly going on vibes or waiting for your SDRs to yell at you or someone else to yell at you, you are not being proactive, and that is not how you get promoted. It is also really not a fun way to live your life doing your job, right? Like just waiting for the other shoe to drop at all times, waiting for someone to be pissed so you can go fix a problem. This is how you can get ahead of the problems, show that you really understand your system and what is supposed to be happening, and make sure that no leads are left behind. You're not missing MQLs, you're not missing marketing attribution. Everything is going where it needs to go and getting what it needs to get. So you will be Roz. We're channeling Roz, always watching. Nothing gets past you. No lead left behind. So the type of reports that I like to use for this, I call them zero out reports. You can also call it like a dashboard of zero, depending on how you set it up. But what you want, if everything is working perfectly, then no one shows up in these reports. Everything is empty. And it makes it a really easy, quick check to see, did I have a problem today or did I not? One way that you can build these reports is to always have a default choice in your operational programs. Anytime you're using choices in a flow step, don't let that default choice just be nothing, because if nothing happened, nothing was picked up the way you expected it to, you really want to know that. So in this example, this is part of a lead source program. We're looking at the very end of the program to see, okay, we made it through, like, did we get a lead source successfully assigned? Did we get all of the last touch data values updated in the asset program itself? And if not, then we're getting added to this last touch not complete list. And then you'll be pulled into a report that runs nightly, and I'll show you how we're monitoring that regularly. That's one way to build your report. The next way, if we go to the next slide, is with a smart list. So in this scenario, you are thinking about what should happen and building a smart list that would show if that didn't happen. In this example, we are using On24 for our webinar platform. What should happen is we create an On24 registration by calling the On24 webhook, and then the On24 custom object has a new custom object line item created for that webinar. What would be bad is if we called the webhook and it didn't get the response we were expecting. The response did not contain On24. Or we called the webhook and then nothing happened. They have no On24 attendee value at all. And we're suppressing things that would be maybe too recent for us to know that it was actually a problem. So basically what you want to do is ask yourself, how do I know this is working? And then check for the opposite. So we know this is working because we called the On24 webhook and we got the custom object. If that didn't happen, then we know that we have a problem we need to look into. And The third way is to build a processing static list. So I'm a big fan of using static lists for operational stuff. Very often, like, people think of static lists as, oh, like, this is where I import my list after we go to a trade show. Like, this is where all the leads go. This is how I get them in. And most of us work in smart lists most of the time. But static lists can be really helpful because if you add someone to a static list, even if they're already on the list, they still get added again and still get that activity. And you can use that to check for things like how many times were they added to the list? Are they still on the list? In this example, this is the initial processing for this customer. So anytime new records are created, they're added to this order of ops in progress static list. Then we're calling out all the different operational programs that are supposed to happen on record creation. And at the very end, we're pulling them off of the list. So one thing we monitor for is, did they come off the list? Like, are people still on this list that have been on there for a day? You really shouldn't be on this list for more than like 5 minutes. But if they didn't ever come off the list and they fell into a hole somewhere, and we need to go track that down and plug the leak. But you want to be able to monitor for something like that rather than just waiting to say, oh, hey, our MQL volume dropped in half. Like, what happened? Oh, it's because no one ever got synced to Salesforce. Next slide. And this is what these reports look like. So you can use SmartList. You can set a subscription for SmartList, which is nice. However, it is harder to see at a glance whether someone has qualified for that SmartList or not. I think usually you have to actually click into the SmartList or download the Excel file that's attached to it to see if anyone is on the list. If you use a person performance report, which if you are not using those already, it's basically like a Marketo pivot table, and summarize it by email address, you can very quickly see in a report subscription if that report is empty or if it has people in it. And I'll show you what that looks like on the subscription itself. Go to the next slide. So again, SmartList subscription is hard to check at a glance. You see on this, sorry, you can go back one. You see this is actually feeding into a Slack channel. And I think it seems kind of scary, right? To like, oh no, I have to set up a Marketo Slack integration and it's going to be really complicated. You can set up a Marketo Slack integration, but that's actually not what this is. Any Slack channel can generate an email address. And if you send reports in a subscription to that email address, they just show up in the Slack channel. No integrations. It is very, very easy. And it gives you the ability to monitor this collectively as a team. Often people use like an email alias, so it goes to everyone's inbox. It's really hard to collaborate on that with your team. It's one of those, like, if everyone is responsible for it, then no one is really responsible for it. It's easy to assume like, oh, someone else on my team has probably handled this because there's no real feedback loop. If it's in a Slack channel, you can like use an emoji response or like tag people in a thread on that message to say, oh, I got this, or oh, can you look into this? And you can also see at a glance, all of these that have no blue did not qualify anybody. But the last one that has a blue attachment shows that someone did show up in that because there was an attachment created with people on the report. So you don't even have to click into the ones that don't have anything. Those, you know, are fine. And the ones that have a blue item, you can click into and see if it was a big issue. You can also add your notification subscriptions to this channel. If you want to go ahead to the next one. So this is another example of what it looks like when there is an attachment, and we use these little emoji responses to show that someone has followed up with this or has looked into the issue. So if, you know, time goes by and there's something that has a little blue line and no one has responded to it, no one has tagged anybody, then you know that that's something that needs to be investigated. Next one. And then subscribing to your notifications. These are, I find these are very easy to ignore because there are so many notifications that pop up in your little notification section, and many of them are not actionable or not important, like those mysterious web service errors that only in the last few months have shown you what API user they're even coming from. Even now, like, it's hard to know what those different codes mean. So you can go through your notifications and subscribe to different types, the ones that are really important and the ones that you want to know when that shows up. So you can filter out some of the noise and have those come directly to that Slack channel too. So I recommend definitely the CRM sync. Sometimes you get some like confusing, dicey Salesforce errors that you can't really do anything about, but it is a good indication. There are often things in there that are a good indication that there's a real problem you need to investigate. And then some of these other ones, like the DNS configuration, SSL certificate expiration, those happen so infrequently, but it's a big problem if it does. So I would include those too. But things like your engagement program, exhausted content will probably be pretty noisy. You can set those up in a separate channel to just go to the people that are actually responsible for creating content for your nurturers. That's a nice feedback loop for them, but maybe a little too noisy for this kind of channel. Go to the next one. Okay, so overall, you want to make sure you're being really thoughtful about what subscriptions you set up. If you have too many going on in there, and it's easy to get excited about this and be like, I'm going to know when everything is happening. But if there is a lot going on in there, it will become really easy to ignore it, honestly. You'll get alarm fatigue. If you're getting a ton of notifications every single day, it will be easy to just kind of feel overwhelmed by it and push it to the side. So keep it just limited to the things that are really critical and really actionable so you and your team can stay on top of it. And create a system of shared responsibility with the other members of your team that are in this channel for who is checking these and how you're following up on them. Like I said, the emoji response or tagging people in a thread, just create some sort of system of collaboration so you know that these have been handled. And I would also discourage you from including leadership or non-technical team members in this channel. It is something that people ask for from time to time. Very often they will start seeing error messages that look scary to them because they don't know what it is, but are not a big deal to you because you do know what it is, and it will cause them to panic. So maybe create a separate type of channel where you escalate things that are actually issues, but you need a level of view between these types of notifications and your leadership team. And I think that's it.
Awesome.
Questions?
A lot of good ideas there. All right, everybody, we are time for questions. So we'll go ahead and we will stop the recording. So if you want to go off of mute and ask anything, you can.